First Warning MMA Report is joined live by Kyle's Vang. Kyle's will be fighting for the Pure FC Featherweight Amateur title on Saturday, November 2nd. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
Not a problem. So tell us a little bit more about your sports background growing up and what got you into MMA.
Yeah, actually, growing up, I didn't really play any sports, didn't really get into wrestling, no football, nothing like that. I did karate for a couple weeks when I was a kid, didn't really have that kind of commitment when I was a kid, not something I really grew up with. Just like with a lot of people, though, my first time watching it was through the UFC.
Okay.
I actually remember watching the Forrest Griffin Stephen Bonner fight, which is a classic.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
seeing that, and that's kind of what hooked me. I saw that, and I was like, what is going on? My older brother was actually a big fan of the UFC, so he kind of explained what it was. And as a kid, pretty much, all I watched were those Bruce Lee movies and a little bit of Mike Tyson here and there. So I didn't really understand this whole MMA, and so that's kind of what got me started watching all that. And from there, I kind of just, I was probably around 20 years old. I had a cousin, and he's like, "Why don't you come work out with me?" I was like, "Sure." I thought we'd be like lifting, I was a pretty scrawny guy. Next thing you know, we're hitting pads and whatnot, and from there on, I just kind of fell in love with it. Started doing Muay Thai.
Excellent. So tell us something that most people would be surprised to learn about you.
Yeah, well, a lot of the guys, even at the gym that I train at Flashback, most of them don't know that when I started out doing Muay Thai, I started out in a basement. So, like I said, it was my cousin, a bunch of buddies. We were just a bunch of hard-nosed guys that we had nothing else better to do. Why not, right? So we started training actually in a basement when I started competing in Muay Thai and like even in the amateurs. It was pretty much me training in a basement. We had a bunch of rough pads and we were just training 2 or 3 times a week. So we didn't have any kind of formal training. The guys I was training with, my cousin Joe, Sa, and Will, and these were just 3 guys. Joe had actually done a lot of training down in Iowa, and the other 2 had just done a little bit of formal training here and there. So it was just a ragtag team, and we just we all kind of fell in love with the idea of it. And since I was like, heck yeah, I was like, I'm dumb enough to get in the ring and get punched in the face. Let's do it. So before all that kind of said and done, most people just don't realize that for me, before I had formal training at Flashback and being under Charlie's wing,
Yep.
my structure kind of started out just, really in a basement.
Huh, interesting. That's pretty interesting, pretty unique. So you always bring a lot of energy to your fights. A lot of times at the beginning, when they do the introductions and between rounds, you kind of do that warrior scream.
Yeah.
And fans love seeing that kind of energy from fighters. What do you feel when you're in the cage, and what does it feel like when you're just getting that emotion out?
Yeah, I can't even tell you where I came up with it, to tell you the truth, the whole battle cry thing. It was just kind of something on the fly for my first MMA fight. I didn't really do it in my Muay Thai fights, I was kind of more calm and collected. But yeah, I remember just being in the cage. It was actually one of the early Pure FC fights, and I was fighting a guy, Matt Kitzman, real nice guy. And it was my first MMA fight, and you kind of feel the nerves a little bit. It's just kind of the way it is, So when I kind of let off that battle cry, it's just, in my mind, it was that switch kind of telling me, all right, it's on. And it was me kind of letting my opponent know, all right, you better bring it, You think of all those movies where people are going to war and they're running after each other, they start screaming and they're on their horses and they're flying by, and that's kind of what went in my head. And for me, like I said, it's kind of just that switch, I'd like to think that I'm a pretty decent guy outside of the cage and outside the ring, but when it comes down to, us fighting, I've got a goal to win, the guy standing in the way, and that's kind of that switch, so I know, all right, it's on, no holding back, we'll sit there, we'll have a beer with each other after the fact, but, for the next 9-15 minutes or so, you're the enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And you mentioned this, you've been training a lot with Charlie Brown, and every time you step in the cage, you look better every single time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about some of the gyms you're working at, some of your training partners and some of your coaches.
Yeah. So Charlie's, of course, my main coach. He kind of oversees my striking and my grappling, conditioning, anything of that sort. Charlie kind of oversees it all. If he sees something lacking in my game, he'll let me know, like, hey, let's say hit jujitsu a little bit more this week, or he's like, all right, let's say your stand-up's not looking as crisp as it normally does. He'll kind of let me know, we're going to pick up an extra kickboxing class this week, so he kind of oversees it all. But overall, I've just got a solid group of guys I train with. In terms of like jiu-jitsu, our head coach his name is Bill Krieg. He's a black belt under Rodrigo Vagi, and so whenever we get the chance, we try to go up to St. Louis and get some cross training over at our sister gym, the main gym, between either St. Charles or at the headquarters at Rodrigo Vagi's gym. So, we've got a lot of high level guys. I'm very fortunate at our gym in terms of jiu-jitsu that we have a lot of guys that constantly compete in tournaments. So you think of you going out and you're competing. So they're constantly learning new things. You're kind of realizing what's working in tournaments, what's working in competition. And by bringing that stuff back home, I'm very fortunate to have such a good group of guys that I train with. In terms of kickboxing, we've had a lot of guys who have had a couple fights here and there. We've got one guy, his name is Rafi. He recently competed. We've got a couple guys. His name's Jason and Charles. Those two are both competing. And, just having a bunch of guys who are also getting ready for fights and being in camp together makes camp a lot easier. When you guys are going intense together, you both have the same mindset. So that, they always say, iron sharpens iron, and I really believe in that because you got a bunch of guys hungry who are in there together and training real hard.
Absolutely. That's how you get better, man. You got to get that high level training, high level guys going against you. And next.
And I mean, we're very fortunate because, with Charlie being such, well-known fighter and whatnot, he does help out and teach at other gyms, so I've had the ability to train at Academy Martial Arts is where Charlie also teaches jiu-jitsu, excuse me. And I've had a chance to work with one of the owner, Chapper. He's worked a lot with me in my Muay Thai and whatnot. So, just little things. There's always room to improve. So he's always kind of working on that with me.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So to your record, I mean, you have one loss in your record, and it was a split decision. I'm sorry. Yours was a decision.
Yes.
And then, so your opponent, Sam Breuer, he's 4-0, and he's only gone the distance once as well, and he had a split decision victory. So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but I don't think either of you want this to go to the judges. I know that you both of you guys have the ability to change a fight in the blink of an eye. What do you have to do to impose your will in this fight?
First of all, I mean, I will say I'm super excited to be fighting Sam. I mean, the dude's tough as it, he's really great at coming forward, and vice versa. That's kind of always my game plan. And I would say in my one loss, that was the reason I lost is, I wasn't the one initiating everything, and vice versa. I noticed that Sam is definitely at his best when he's got his front foot forward. On both our ends, I think that's going to be the key to success. Is both of us, we're going to be stepping forward, we're going to be throwing hands, we're going to be grappling, and and people always say it like this, but it's the guy that's going to be stepping back that's going to be losing. Really, that's what it's going to come down to because he's a tough guy, and of course, in a perfect world, would I want to get like a first round submission or knockout? Who wouldn't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm also not oblivious to the fact that this is a real tough guy. He's 4-0 for a reason. He's tough. He's fought tough competition. I saw one of his fights in Three Rivers Throwdown where he knocked the guy out for a right cross, and it just shows, just how dangerous this guy is, that he can change the fight, just like you said, split second. So for me, really knowing my P's and Q's, really being ready for anything he's coming my way, and, really just trying to impose my will in terms of grappling, and constantly controlling the distance between us, whether we're engaging or not, because this is going to be a tough guy, and he's not going to get hit, cower away, and start stepping back. No, he's going to get hit, he's going to come forward, and vice versa. I'm going to get hit, and I'm going to say, you know what? Heck, we're in for a good night. Easily I could see us being fight of the night, no doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was just going to bring that up too. Is you're always pushing forward. You use really good footwork, really good head movement, and you also seem to be pretty comfortable no matter where the fight goes. And obviously, Sam's comes from a wrestling background. Do you think you'll be able to stop his wrestling in this fight?
And I'll tell you what, if I'm going to win this fight, I'm going to have to be able to stop takedowns, hands down. He's a big, tough guy. I mean, I'm going up in weight. I normally fight at 135, so realistically, should I hopefully have the speed advantage? Hopefully, that would be the game plan. And, he's going to have great wrestling. He's going to be shooting some heavy takedowns, I'm sure. So on my end, it's the ability, can I stuff it? When I'm stuffing it, can I capitalize off of that? When let's say I stuff him, I sprawl out, I'm able to put on damage from that point on. Am I able to enforce any takedowns of my own, kind of get him thinking about things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely that I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about takedowns, right? I mean, I've seen the guy fight. Dude's got great takedowns. He's very heavy. So, am I gonna go out there and I'm gonna, thinking it's a kickboxing fight? No, of course not. It's an MMA fight, But like I said, I've been very fortunate to have such a good team. And at the end of the day, we're gonna be ready for whether it hits the cage, hits the ground, or stays right in the middle.
Absolutely, yeah. And do you think you might have the advantage on the feet in this one?
I would sure hope so. If I'm being honest with you, I'm definitely hoping so. Like I said, kid comes from a wrestling background. Kid's tough as nails. He's not gonna be easy to put away. So when I'm coming out there, when I'm letting my hands go, I'm definitely hoping I'm gonna have for sure the stand up. That's gonna be my goal, of course. Is am I gonna be better stand up? But the goal is also to be the better, grappler, not necessarily the better wrestler. Right? To say that I could go against a guy, in pure wrestling, right? I mean, who knows? But be the better grappler, be the assertive grappler, be the more technical grappler, kind of controlling the outcome of the moves of what's going on.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the more rounded you can be, the better it is, obviously.
Definitely.
So, what's your prediction for Saturday? How do you get the job done? Get your hand raised?
You know what? I'm gonna say, because I got a lot of respect for this guy, I'm gonna say unanimous decision, 5 rounds. I don't think it's gonna be one of those easy fights where I'm gonna sit there, hit the guy a couple times, and drop him. I mean, he's fought tough competition. He's fought big guys. On my end, I've gone to a decision once. Out of all 4 of my fights. So do I like decisions? Of course not. Like I said, I'm hoping to get the finish, but I'm also realistic about how tough this guy is.
Yep.
I know it's not going to be an easy night. I know at some point we're going to hit the canvas. At some point we're going to be throwing, a lot of fire at each other. So to go out there and say, man, I'm going to knock him out in the first round. This guy's tough for a reason. There's a reason this guy hasn't got knocked out yet. There's a reason he hasn't lost yet. So definitely, in a perfect world, we get a first round finish, but definitely I'm prepared to go all 5 rounds.
Absolutely. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about any sponsors you have, training partners, coaches, friends, family, anybody you want to thank. Floor is yours.
All right, cool. No, just, of course, a big shout out to the guys that got me started, Will, Sa, and Joe. Those are, like I said, the first 3 guys. They kind of really built my foundation of my style. Obviously, huge hats off to Charlie. You talk about taking somebody under your wing. He's done a really good job with that. Whether we win, we lose, they always say in the game, you got to have somebody you can really trust, and that's definitely somebody I trust. I know when it comes down to fighting, I'm willing to go out on my shield. So I leave the tough call to Charlie. If something would happen, if I broke my shoulder, I know deep down I'd still want to keep fighting. And I know Charlie would always make the best call for me. Whether it's, we'd keep going one more round, whether he threw in the towel or called it quits. That's something you got to have like 100% confidence in your corner when you're fighting.
Absolutely.
And, Charlie's just one of those guys, win, lose, draw, he's got my back. A real big thanks to my wife. She deals with a lot of my social media, when we're reaching out to people, when we're advertising a lot. And, just with her being really supportive, helping prep my meals and getting me ready, because weight cutting's not easy. And, it's easy to, honestly, like, munch here and munch there. And she does a real good job when I'm in camp and I'm trying to cut weight, of keeping a lot of the junk food out of the house for me. So I don't have that option to cheat. Keeping me very strict and very dedicated. So, and of course my friends and family, everybody coming out to watch me fight. Much love to all of them, and to my opponent Sam. I mean, we're gonna have a good night.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you already touched on this, and I was going to bring that up. I think this is a sneaky fight of the night fight, and I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking it, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. So we really appreciate you taking the time today. When you're getting ready for a fight, obviously to step away from training, to do an interview, it's we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. We look forward to seeing you throw down on Saturday, and best of luck to you in your title fight.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you guys even having me. I'm not too well known, so you guys kind of giving me the spotlight for a sec to kind of let me, get some words out. It means a lot. So anytime you guys want to have me, I'm up.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
Thank you.
Take it easy.